Her triumphs.
I took a group of women that didn't believe in themselves, and I just believed in them.
Her trials.
I never wanted to go to practice. I was losing a ton of weight.
Her story.
I just put my faith in God and just trusted the system.
Her why.
I want people to see what I did and say, oh, that's so awesome. I'm going to be better than that. That would be how I hope that this journey ends.
This is Her Why, where we tell the stories from BYU women's sports. Here is your host, Lauren McLean.
Joining me now is former BYU star forward who won WCC Player of the Year her senior year in 2015 and is now an assistant coach for the BYU women's basketball team, Morgan Bailey. Morgan, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So you've come full circle now coaching here at BYU. Did you ever think you would end up back at BYU as a coach?
No, especially when I stopped playing here. I never wanted to be a coach, so I was like, I'm going to play professionally as long as I can and then go into something else, not basketball. But now that I have made it full circle, it is kind of surreal to be back. So
okay, so we got to jump to that then. You never wanted to coach, so how did you get into it?
Yeah, so when I was here, I would coach like the summer basketball camps.
Yeah.
And Dan Nielsen, who was the assistant at that time, always joked like, oh, you're going to coach one day, you're going to coach one day. Because we all get our own little teams and put plays in and stuff and coach them for the week. And so I was like, no, like I'm not going to coach. This is not the life for me. And so overseas, I kind of got the coaching bug, seeing how the breakdown of games was. And one of my coaches in Finland, he actually came to my house and said, hey, let's watch film. How do we guard this? How do you want to guard this? And so I fell in love with like breaking down and strategy and stuff. And so when I stopped playing, it was I couldn't see basketball not in my life. And so that's what I went into, and I love it, and I wouldn't do anything else. So.
You like the X's and O's.
I love the X's and O's, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you were an assistant basketball coach at UVU when your former coach, Jeff Judkins, decided to retire as BYU's head coach. What were your thoughts at the time on who should be the next coach?
Well, to be completely honest, me being at UVU with Dan Nielsen, who was very successful here as an assistant, I think his first year back was the year that we went to the Sweet 16. He changed my life completely, like just with basketball and post-development. And so when Judd left, I was like, it makes sense that Dan would come back after having head coaching experience, knowing the program through and through, and having some successes over there at UVU. And so that when he applied, I was all for it, backing him and saying, yeah, go for it, go for it, go for it. So
he is an incredible coach.
He absolutely
and such a good guy.
Yeah.
Did you ever think of yourself? Was that even something on your radar at the time?
No, I knew I wasn't ready for this level. Yeah. I know I want to be a head coach one day, but I want to step into the role when I'm like completely 100% ready, because I don't want to, be a disservice to the girls that I coach if I'm not ready, if that makes sense. And so I knew I wasn't ready for this level. And I know I read an article that like I was one of the names thrown out there, but I didn't even apply. Like, I don't know. I just wasn't ready.
Yeah. And you knew that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you saw that Amber Whiting was named the new head coach of the women's basketball team. What were your initial thoughts?
My initial thoughts was, and I think I've told Amber this, so hopefully it doesn't come as a shock, but it wasn't ever anything negative. It was more just, interesting hire. I didn't know her at all. We recruited Amari for like 5 seconds at UVU until she got too big time for us. And so I met Amber very briefly when they came on campus for an unofficial, and it was like maybe 2 years ago. And so I didn't know Amber at all. And so... and then obviously being so loyal to Dan and being under Dan, I was kind of distraught and I'm like, I don't know what the correct word is, but a little disappointed that he didn't get it. But then when she reached out to me and just wanted to talk, and in my interview, I understood the hire and it's someone that I could get behind. So that's why I made the jump over.
And that's so interesting you say that because I was a little bit like, oh, Amber Whiting? Mm-hmm. You know what? Interesting. Then when I actually sat down and chatted with her, I'm like, that makes complete sense. Yeah. There's just something about her, right? So Coach Whiting was named head coach on May 18th. It was announced that you had joined her staff on June 7th, and you even tweeted, I'm back and it feels too good. So what happened in between those two dates right there?
Yeah, in my other interview that I just did, it's still kind of a sensitive subject because I loved UVU.
Yeah.
And I love the coaches. I love my girls. I love everything that I think UVU sometimes gets a bad rap. It's a great institution that's growing.
Yeah.
And so in between that, it was me deciding. Amber said she wanted to hire me. I had to go through the process here because BYU has a crazy process. But she wanted to hire me, but I didn't know if I wanted to leave Dan. And so between that time, it was a lot of just like pondering, prayer, temple visits, like all this stuff of like, is this the right fit for me? Ultimately, I felt at peace and that it was the right thing for me to come over. And so after I decided, it was, how do I tell my girls and Dan and all this stuff? But it was, I'd make the same decision over and over again. This is where I need to be and where I'm supposed to be. So,
what were the conversations like with Dan through that process? Because I'm sure that was really difficult for him and you.
Yeah, and I think it's just like it's a combination of everything, of it being BYU, it going to the next level, a job that he really wanted, a job that he thought he was going to get, and so I think it was a combination of, and then someone who got hired who's perceived to have less. Well, not perceived, does have less experience at the D1 level than him. And so I think it was all the combination of he didn't get the job. I'm leaving him for someone who doesn't have any experience at this level. And then also we had lost Ashley Garfield over there too, who was his first assistant. And so I had moved into first assistant. And so just, I think we were rolling too. Like we were just on the cusp of like, getting over that hump of finishing second, third in that league every single year. And so I think it was just like a lot of hits that he took, but he was like, seriously, he took it like a champ, like still he supported me. I still felt love from him, just wants me to be successful and is still rooting for me. So
what do you think Amber Whiting saw in you that made her want to choose you to join the staff?
She told a story, and I don't know if I'm supposed to share it or not, but I'm going to. So, but she told a story that when she got hired, they took her into the Marriott Center just so that she could kind of take it all in. And she said she looked up in like the rafters where banners are hung, and she saw my name stand out like really like brightly. There was no spotlight or anything, but just saw my name. And so she knew I was coaching at UVU, knew I was an alumni, didn't really know me past that. I also know in some other interviews, I know like Dan said he would hire me as assistant. There's some other people. So I think my name was like thrown out there. So she had an idea. But I when we interviewed, it was, I feel like we align the same. And I don't know if it is that we are the women on staff or whatever it is, but we align in that we're here for the girls, like completely. Not saying that like Lee and AK aren't, because they are, but just more relating to them in different ways. We were female athletes not too long ago, like all this stuff. And so I think that, and then also post-development was something I was super passionate about. And that was another reason why I came over, is that I could still be in that area like I was at UVU, and her trusting me completely with the bigs. And so I think I brought that little aspect to it. And I think her seeing herself as like she could be my mentor in this as a new head coach, preparing me for when I'm ready to take over my own program as well.
Dang, so cool.
Yeah.
What's the impact for this BYU women's basketball team to have a female head coach? Because you mentioned it's you and Amber and a female assistant coach. Has that ever been discussed between the two of you, of the impact of having that?
Yeah, we haven't like talked about it in like depth, but it is something that is obviously looked at nowadays. Especially, you see a lot of new hires are women coaching women. I personally, I just love seeing women be bosses, and that's what Amber is like she's unapologetically herself, will tell you how it is.
Yeah.
And the girls all know where she stands. And so that's what I love about Amber the most, and that I admire about her the most. So even though we haven't had in-depth conversations about these women in power positions, it is just watching her, be the boss that she is. It doesn't matter. Like, I think once a coach, always a coach, no matter what level. Like, she knows how to coach. And so it's just fun seeing her develop into this D1 Big 12 coach that she is, one step at a time, one day at a time, kind of finding her way, what she likes, what she doesn't like, and not apologizing for it ever.
So cool. Liz Darger, a senior associate athletic director at BYU, was your coach in high school at Timpanogos. Did it make a difference to you at that time that she was a woman being your coach?
Yeah. So I've played for women quite a bit with her, and then Melinda Johnson too, who was my coach. Melinda Bendel was my coach here as well.
Okay.
But Liz, she has like touched and changed my life forever. I came in, so I say I started basketball in 9th grade. It is more competitive basketball. I played like junior jazz, like all that stupid stuff, but I never really liked basketball. And so Liz kind of found me as this weird, awkward freshman, like I did not talk. I had glasses. Like, I was just like this weird person. And so she found me because I was tall. And I remember not saying like more than one word to her when I met her. And so she kind of helped me get through that, taught me to love basketball, taught me the fundamentals, and just slowly build until I was at the place where I was. And so her being a woman, I think, helps. But just, again, like a boss lady, like, who is unapologetically herself and absolutely genuine. And then realizing that that's more of the people that I relate with and work with the best, is just real, like, genuine human beings that are there for, the good of the athlete. Yeah. And so that's who she always has been and still is to this day. So
she's incredible. She spoke last year, I believe, at the devotional, and she brought you up, which I'm sure you know. Were you present for that devotional? There, yeah. What was that like for you when she started talking about you during that?
I mean, I remember going to devotional is it Tuesdays? Yeah. Every Tuesday when I was an athlete here, Jed had us go. And so it was kind of weird to have like my name said in it. But she did tell me, because she wanted pictures, and she asked if it was okay to like share these stories or whatever. And so I had an idea that I was going to be at, but I didn't know it was like all that. But again, it's just admiration for her, and just me reflecting back on the impact she had on my life. So
let's go back to the beginning. You grew up in a single-parent household. Your mom, Roxanne, raised you and your 2 siblings. What was it like for you growing up?
Looking back, it was hard, but in the moment, I don't remember it being hard. My mom had to work 3 to 4 jobs sometimes, and did anything and everything for us. My sister danced, and dancing is not cheap. Me, I danced as well. My brother danced. He did violin. So like, we just had all these hobbies that she had to fund. And like, again, she just sacrificed everything. Never bought herself anything nice, would sell her old jewelry her mom gave her, just to fund our stuff. And then when I found basketball again, like 9th grade, and then that was introduced to the AAU circuit, she hustled to be able to pay for that. Because that's like, now teams are sponsored, but back then not a lot of us were. And so we had to pay our way. And so her flipping that bill again, working her butt off to like make my dreams come true. That's why when I got a scholarship, like my first scholarship offer was like BYU Hawaii. And I thought I made it because I was like, I don't have to pay for school. My mom doesn't have to pay for school. And so it meant so much. Even I didn't care what level it was. I didn't know anything about it, but it meant so much that my mom didn't have to worry about paying for my school. So.
Man, your mom sounds like just an incredible human being.
Yeah.
Like you said, would do anything for her kids. How do you feel like she's influenced you to become the woman you are today?
My mom is the most service-oriented human being I've ever met. And whether it be for us or for anybody else, she would lay down everything for other people. And just seeing her, because my dad was not involved at all. And so she legit raised us by herself, but also had great friends who helped her with us, because it does take a village. But I think it's just seeing my mom's, again, service-oriented, but super genuine. And she's created these genuine relationships where we had like second moms, second fathers, like all this stuff who helped raise us, and kind of had the same service orientation like my mom does. Yeah. And so I don't know. I just see there's a lot. I'm realizing talking to you, I have a lot of like great women in my life, and her being at the top of the list. Absolutely. So.
What an incredible woman. Let's jump into your basketball career a little bit. You said that you didn't even like basketball that much, and then Liz Darger finds you because you said you're tall. And she's like, we need some power on this team, I'm sure. So what was that like for you? What made you jump back in, even though you didn't like it very much?
Yeah. This is an interesting story. I don't know if it's like the healthiest relationship for me with basketball. But so like I said, I danced. My sister's a really good dancer. Like she's amazing. Wow. And so she was dancing, and just because my older sister was, I did too. Me and my sister are built completely different. Like she is small, petite, short, like just this tiny girl. And where I was like this monstrosity of a girl, like going to dance class. And so she had her thing, and I just loved watching her excel. Yeah. And I wanted something that I was good at and felt good at as well. I knew dancing wasn't it. I was a tap dancer. She was more like ballet, lyrical, jazz, like all that stuff. But I did tap dance for a really long time. And then, but I wanted something that's kind of like hers. I saw how people looked at her when she danced and how she was in the dance world. And so I wanted that for myself, my own thing. And again, I played like junior jazz, but it was more of a social thing. And so when Liz heard that I was like deciding to go to Orem High, because that's I went to, all my friends were going to Orem High, but I was in Timpanogos Boundaries. And so I was deciding on which one to go. She had me come to a game, and again, she just asked me so many questions, and I like did not answer. It was like one-word answers. And so when I found that, and then just how the community, I had like awesome teammates, like it just made me love basketball and made me want to be the best at that. Just like my sister was an amazing dancer, I wanted to be the best basketball player because it was my thing. Yeah.
That doesn't sound unhealthy to me.
Right? It doesn't. I hope it doesn't.
You're like, it doesn't, right?
I was like, I want something for myself. But yeah, and so it was something that I loved, and so I worked every single day at it, and again, had great teammates, great coaches who shot with me, taught me stuff. Ray Stewart was one of them as my club coach. Yeah, Melinda Bendel, who also coached me here, was one of them. And so I just had, again, a village around me helping me, and just got better and better every year. But I'm just, again, the type of person, it's just who I am. I don't settle for what I'm at right now. I want more. And so just finding ways to get better every day.
That's why you've been so successful at everything you've done. And I got to know, do you still know how to tap dance? Is that still something you do?
I haven't. It was a long time ago. I think I stopped when I was when I was in 9th grade. So I know ball change, shuffle, and flap and all that stuff, but I'm not.
The team needs to do like a random talent.
Right.
Yeah, talent show.
Just break out the tap
shoes. You can whip that out.
Yeah.
So did you feel like you were behind at all since you weren't playing as competitively as maybe some of these girls going into high school? Did you feel like you were behind, or did you pick it up quickly?
I was behind. In Darger's, in Liz's thing, she said that I was like not, what was the word? It was a little offensive, but I accept it because it's true.
I think she said so. She didn't say unathletic.
Or like not coordinated or something like that. But it's right. It's right. But she, so I was like, no, I wasn't good. Because I wore glasses, and so I was really timid. I didn't want my glasses to fall off, so that kind of took away from my game. I wasn't super competitive yet. Like when I was at BYU, I was like hitting people all the time. I wasn't like a banger in the post yet. And so I remember some of my teammates, we went to like this tournament of champions in Arizona in December. And some of my teammates who were seniors, they like attacked me and like started hitting me until I hit them back because I was too soft. So it was like all in fun. It sounds like hazing, but it wasn't. And so they are like, when they saw me at BYU, they always come back like, we take credit for you being here because we made you tougher and all this stuff. But so I was just very timid. And then it was my AAU season that kind of made me break out of my shell because I was finally like away from my mom, traveling to North Carolina and Oregon and all this stuff without her. And then also playing against way higher competition. And so that's where I kind of saw my skill development go up with Ray, and Liz was still a part of it, and Melinda came in a little bit later. And that's where I was like, yeah, this is my thing. And so took off from there.
Wow. So looking back, how would you, in just a few words, describe how you went from hardly ever playing basketball to being a huge recruit to play in Division I basketball.
Yeah, it was still surreal. Like I look back at my recruiting journey, and I think my first D1 offer was UVU. And I was ready to commit right when they offered me. Everyone who offered me, I was like, okay, I'll commit to you. And so, but it was like surreal. I think it's just like my whole journey, though, period, of like I didn't like basketball, and then I found it and was good at it, and I loved it. I never thought I was going to play in college, and there I was playing in college. I never thought I was going to play overseas professionally, and then I went and played for professionally overseas, and then I never wanted to coach, and now I'm coaching. And so I kind of just like going with the flow of things of like, if it works, I'm going to stick with it. If it doesn't work, I'll move on. So, but
it's interesting when you start to become really good at something, how much you learn to love it, right? Whatever it is.
Yeah.
So when you are recruiting now as a coach, do you ever look for girls that were kind of like yourself, like ones that maybe don't, have all the opportunity or didn't start off when they were really, really little, but have a bunch of potential? Is that something you look for now?
Yeah. And out recruiting, you can see, especially the post game, because post players don't really have like post development in the high school level. And so I do love looking for projects. And we found one this year who didn't come to us, but I'm still bitter about it. But so you see these girls who have the drive, have like those intangibles of just like, that they hit people, they just don't use their body in the right way. Or they have a really good left hand but don't have a right hand. Like those are things that I can teach or whatever. I saw it in Josie Williams was one I coached over at UVU, who she left UVU when I left and then transferred, and she's at Louisville right now playing. But I saw her play in high school when I was at Snow College, and I was like, this girl's gonna be something. Like, and so it's fun to see like those type of players, and it's fun to watch her now killing it at Louisville. So
that's so awesome. So you went to Timmenhovis High School in Orem, not far from BYU. For those of you who don't know where that is. Did you want to come to BYU? Was BYU on your radar?
No. Well, no, it wasn't. I didn't want to be the typical Utah kid who's a member of the church and just goes to the comfort zone of BYU, especially since my mom like lives legit down the street. And so that was never my thing. They also offered me really late. And so I was like, once I started getting a little more attention, I was like, if they don't want me, I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
And so it was between me and Jen Hampson. And like me and Jen were like fighting for who was the best big in the state anyway.
Yeah.
Jen was by far. I'm not even going to take that title from her. But and so when they said that they were deciding between me and Jen, I was like, okay, I'm going to go somewhere that actually like values me for me. And so UNLV was like the place I was ready to commit to. I fell in love with the coaches. Las Vegas sounded fun as like a little freshman. But then Allie Bills, who was here coaching, she caught wind of it and called me and said, hey, before you commit, come one more time on campus and just, we'll answer any questions. Just come get a feel one more time. And so it was the next day I went and fell in love with my teammates and fell in love with the coaches, and then just fell in love with just, the air about BYU. And so, and also my mom being my single mom, knowing that she couldn't afford to travel to see me play, it kind of hit home of like, you've worked so hard to get me here. I want you to be able to watch this unfold, like watch and see what I can become. So she was a huge factor as well.
Well, you became WCC Player of the Year your final season, which is just incredible. I mean, besides like winning it all, right? That's the best you can do. When you look back at your time at BYU, what's your favorite memory playing on the court? Let's start there.
On the court is by far our Sweet 16 run. I tell like everyone that I would trade in my individual awards my senior year any day just to relive that with my teammates. And so playing on that big stage against great competition, you can't get anything better, honestly. That's like the moments we live for. And it's once in a lifetime opportunity too. Like some people don't ever get to go to the NCAA tournament, and we made it all the way to the Sweet 16 to lose to then champion UConn. And so just those memories of fighting with my sisters, like we were not just teammates, like we were sisters. And so I can't think of a better experience than that. So.
And you played with some incredible girls throughout your career. Like you mentioned, Jen Hansen, Lexi Eaton-Rydalch, Ashley Garfield. I mean, you could mention a ton. With those girls, what was some of your favorite memories or your favorite memory off the court?
Off the court, it was probably that junior year where we were in, I think we had gotten to Portland a little bit early. And so, because we had like the 2 games of Gonzaga then them, we got there a little early and we all sat in the hall of the hotel and we played games forever. Like just stupid games, whether it be like spoons or catchphrase or whatever it was. That still is easily my favorite memory. And then later that night, we all last second decided we wanted to go see Frozen. And so Judd was awesome. He treated us like adults unless we couldn't be treated like adults. And so we didn't even ask him. We just bought tickets and we ran through the streets of Portland at 10 o'clock at night to go catch Frozen. And so just good memories like that. Like it's just, again, making it a sisterhood rather than just teammates when you do stuff like that. So.
That was a lot of trust from Juddy. Wow.
Yeah, no, he was awesome. Even when we went to Spain internationally, like he let us do our thing of like going out when we wanted to go out, not like at nighttime, but like if we wanted to go walk around, he was okay with it as long as he knew that we got back. So
we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to have more from Morgan Bailey. We're here with BYU women's basketball assistant coach Morgan Bailey and former star forward for the BYU women's basketball team. So after your time here at BYU, you went overseas, you played in a few places, Finland, Australia, Portugal, to name a few. You mentioned that you'd never planned on doing that, just like you hadn't planned on coaching or even playing basketball. So how did that come about?
It started becoming more real after our Sweet 16 run. When like WNBA scouts I was on their radar. And then we went to Spain for our international trip, and there we played against some pro teams there, and all the girls were like, "Come play for us, come play for us! Like when do you get done with season? You can come play for us." And so I was like, "Oh, this is like actually real." And it was in Madrid, Spain, that I was like, I could live here, I could do this, and so it became kind of more real with that. But again, it was also, my whole career is surreal, to be honest. Like I look back and I was like, was I really like that successful? I was just playing ball. And so like even with the honor of being WCC Player of the Year, it still is just weird to me. Like and so even playing overseas and having that opportunity when it was presented to me, it was kind of just like, what is happening? Like this is bizarre. Like this is my life kind of thing. But again, it just kind of fell into my lap. I went to the WNBA Combine, and that's where I met my agent. And then it really got real when I signed with her. So cool.
Mm-hmm. So what made you decide that, okay, I've kind of done my time overseas, it's time to move on to something else?
So even before I went to Portugal, and my first game, I sprained my ankle really bad. And then we had another game that was super important for a cup. I don't even know what cup it was, some European cup. And so we had a very important game. I came back a little too soon and tore ligaments in my ankle. And so they kept me there for like 3 months of just, I wasn't playing when they were paying me, which is like unheard of. Yeah. And so they kept me there for 3 months and wanted me to stay over Christmas to nurture this ankle and get back. And I just felt like something wasn't right. And so I decided to leave and go home to get the medical care I needed. And so then I was like, am I going to play? Am I not going to play anymore? But had some more opportunities. Did a quick trip to China with a USA team and just to fill it out. Felt good. And so then I went and finished in those 2 countries that I've played in. But after that, I just wasn't the same. And I knew I didn't want to play basketball if I wasn't 100% and could do what I did, what I do. Finland, I slipped a disc in my back. And so I had like the worst sciatic pain I've ever had in my life. And so after that, I was like, no, I think I'm done. And so I had back surgery, and coming back from that was really hard. And so that's when I hung up the shoes, and then basketball, like coaching legit just fell into my lap, just like every other opportunity in basketball has. So
how was that transition? How did you go from playing to coaching?
Yeah, it wasn't as hard as a transition as I thought it was going to be, just because I knew I was done with basketball. There was no what ifs with me. Yeah. I had scratched that itch and I was ready to be done. And then it was also easy because I knew basketball was still going to be in my life as well. It was kind of hard teaching basketball and then watching, because if the girls were struggling, I was like, hey, can I get my shoes? Like, yeah.
Let me show you how it's done.
And so that was the hardest. But other than that, I was ready to be done. Yeah. I had no desire to go back overseas and play. So
you kind of mentioned it. You're not very much older than these girls that are playing. So that's got to be kind of hard not wanting to put on your shoes and go play. But how does that affect your connection with these other women and how you coach them?
Yeah. Right now it's great being an assistant because I don't have to be like the bad guy. That's Amber's job. And so I can relate to them in that I was in your shoes. So I understand if girls need to mess around before a game, who aren't, I was that type of player too, of I would focus all week on the game plan, right? The night before I would look over the game plan, watch the scout, do whatever. But then game day, I was anything but basketball. I'm just going to have fun with my teammates and kind of mess around. And so I get that aspect. And so I relate to girls on that, but I also relate to the girls who want to be serious because, and so I don't know. I think bridging the gap of it was, because I've had so many practice at Snow, at SEU, at UVU, of always having the head coaches back, always, and being on their agenda and supporting them, but also supporting these girls. If there's a problem or whatever, I absolutely have my head coaches back, but want to make sure the girls are okay as well. So just making sure everyone's in line, kind of bridging that gap. So.
Making sure they're heard, and you're listening to them.
Yeah.
You're just in a unique position, and it's so cool. Like you said, you don't have to be the bad guy.
Not yet, anyway.
No, not yet. One day you will be. But how do you feel like you're helping these athletes prepare for an even bigger stage that they're going to be going into with the Big 12 next year?
Right. I think the fearless, that's what Amber Whiting is, fearless. Taking this job and just all the scrutiny on social media with other coaches when we go out recruiting, there's definitely an air about some coaches, but she is absolutely fearless. And so I think that's kind of the same mentality that we have coming in. We're obviously going to bring in more kids that are going to help us, but with the girls we have right now, it is, I don't care what name is across the chest. I don't care what conference we are. We are BYU, and this is how we do things, of just going in and doing our thing rather than worrying about, this team's really good, this team's really good. Yeah. It's no, we'll obviously prepare them for it, but what do we do best, and just instilling that in them. And I think Amber has done a really good job of, this is what she wants her identity to be. We're going to help these kids, become the defensive dogs they can be, while bringing in more defensive dogs as well. And so I think just the fearless mentality is how we can approach it, because that's all I know. When we went to the Sweet 16, it was kind of what Judd did, is we didn't care. We just showed up and played ball like we knew how to play. And so I think that's first and foremost, while still, teaching them what we need to do, game planning and scouting and all that stuff, while recruiting as well. So
that is definitely top 3, one of the most fun women's basketball games I've ever watched, by the way, because I believe you guys were ahead at halftime.
We were down by 2.
Oh, yeah, I know. It was so close.
Hey, but we were up by I think 8 or 6, which was the largest deficit UConn had that year. So, yeah, it was fun.
What an incredible career and life that you've had so far. We're here with Morgan Bailey, former WCC Player of the Year and assistant coach for the BYU women's basketball team. Morgan, thank you so much for coming on with me. You're incredible, and good luck with the rest of the season.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
You can download and listen to all episodes of Her Why on the BYU Radio app or wherever you find podcasts. Her Why is a production of BYU Radio.